Fashion Final JCM Jones from Mothership and Dirty South Soccer. I almost said 92.9 the game. I'm not from there.
Oh,
Joe Patrick is from there, and he is over there. Joe, how we doing, man? How we doing after after running and sweating in the Florida heat for 90 minutes?
yeah. I love Joseph. Yesterday after the game, was like, it was so hot.
You can see they were dying a little bit. It was only like 82. I kind of like
Yeah,
I don't know. I kind of have to dunk on them a little bit for that. It wasn't that bad, guys.
feels
Come
like
on.
the feels like temp. The feels like temp was I don't know,
It was 90. They said it was
90.
90. Yeah. So maybe not enough to fully blame everything on the heat there, but maybe we'll give them a pass a little bit. A little bit. We'll talk more about Atlanta United's 1-1 draw with Inter Miami here in a second, but wanted to let you guys know that we have a show coming up pretty soon that we're pretty excited about. Planning on talking with Anton Walks later this week. That is for patrons. You can go ahead and check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/5stripe final. And we'll have that interview with Anton, plus much, much more coming to you throughout the week as we get ready for the first 100% capacity game at Mercedes-Benz since, oh my God, the
Ooh,
Nick
that's a good
De Leon
question.
game.
Oh my God, yeah, that would have been it. Yes.
Crap.
It's funny. Hopefully, it doesn't go like how it went for the Braves. Brian Snicker said it was like at the first full capacity game for the Braves was a lot like the last full capacity game for the Braves that they
That's
had,
exactly right.
where Mike
um,
Fultonevich gave up. Yeah, they gave up like 10 runs in the first inning, or whatever. Anyways, that was
Yeah,
kind of funny.
exactly. So
Hopefully, that
let's see.
doesn't
The Braves
happen.
had that wild card loss to the Cardinals, and we had the Nick De
Yeah,
Leon game.
yeah.
Awesome. What the
We got
hell were
a
we
lot of
doing in
bad juju
2019?
here to break. Yeah. Oh,
Jesus,
God.
man. They did not break it Friday night when I was there. They lost 12-2. Thank you,
Yeah.
Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
Awesome. So glad. So glad. Atlanta United gets a point, though. We'll talk more about it as we head to business time. Business time. Joe Patrick again. 1-1 draw on the road. The good news, though, and the news that everyone's been waiting for a long, long time, Josef Martinez scores his first goal in 564 days.
Thank you for reminding me that there was good news from this game because it's like the first time I've heard about it. I feel like since he happened. No, it was awesome. And, probably an underrated goal, just the way he took it, the way he scored it. I mean, left footed to kind of curl it into the corner there. Nice little goal. Not like a tap in or something that you would, that's the kind of goal that you can really build confidence with. So great to see that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people maybe kind of backed off on how good it was just because Ryan Shawcross is shit. Because he was
Yeah.
just like standing there staring at Joseph's pink hair and not doing really anything. But even if he does close down, I think Joseph makes that move so quickly that the Shawcross was never going to get there. It was still going to the same spot. Haven't looked at it a couple of times. Of course, Joseph had a great quote after the game where he
Yeah, this
said,
was amazing.
Chicharito scores bad goals and gets called a crack. I score, it's the defense fault. Beautiful. Well, he
Yeah.
was joking, guys. It was funny. He's
I
just
mean,
giving some
he
shit
was
to Chicharito.
obviously going to roast Ryan Shawcross anyway. I really enjoyed watching Ryan Shawcross play in that game yesterday just because of the hilarity of it. There was one time he just wrestled poor Eric Lopez, 19-year-old beautiful Paraguayan boy, and Ryan Shawcross was just wrestling him down to the ground, like from the upper body. It was like a rugby tackle or something. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, it's almost like just the absurdity of it makes it an
Right.
entertainment product. It's like a
Yeah.
novelty. It's like, oh, okay, that guy is there doing pretty bad, actually. Interesting.
And I didn't even know
Interesting.
I didn't even know he was in MLS until like 3 days ago, preparing for this game. So even more fun.
Amazing. He doesn't really contribute a whole lot, but Inter Miami does find plenty of chances throughout the day. I think the XG ended up somewhere around 2-1. And again, a lot of it came from something very similar we saw against Philadelphia, and we've kind of continued to see this trend. And it's something that Brad Gazan called out immediately as something that needs to improve. There are so many giveaways in bad spots that the general gist of a system like this, of a system that's modeled after a Bielsa system, we saw it with Tata. We've heard it from players who played defensively under Tata over and over again. You get put out on an island pretty regularly, right? And you can make up for that and do pretty well defensively overall as a team, as long as you're not having to face transition moments that are coming from incredibly hard positions that give other teams massive numbers advantages. Right. So when Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
United is giving the ball away and doing stupid things like Santiago Sosa, for every like 100 things he does good to phenomenally, there's the one thing he does where
Yeah.
you go, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen on a soccer field. I think he's done that twice in a row now, but like back-to-back games. But it has a terrible giveaway against Ali Guin. Should have scored, didn't. Guzan gets a save, but it happened a few times, and those transition moments are coming so easily and with such an advantage that that's where a lot of the really critical chances are coming for other teams. And until that gets sorted out, people are going to continue to think the defense is doing badly. I don't think that's the case right now.
Yeah, I do think it will be interesting to see how Gabriel Heinze kind of evolves his own tactical style with this team and whether he's kind of malleable enough to be willing to do that, because that was something that we saw from Tata Martino in his time, was he kind of had to adjust honestly to the quality of player, I think, that is in this league, and the fact that in this league there are going to be more giveaways. Like, you're going to have more errant passes where the ball is, it's like a hospital ball given away in the middle of the park, and you have to be able to have a solid enough structure to be able to cover for that. And so that's why we saw Tata Martino transition from a 4-2-3-1 to a 3-5-2 in that second season to give himself a little bit of solidity. And it meant that the team wasn't able to press as high up the field, but they were able to still control games when they had to. And obviously they had a better defensive record. And, right now it feels like Heinze is still in that period of time where he wants to, really ingrain his philosophy, and he's going to be very rigid in that. And he's not going to really sacrifice anything. And I think that that's why we're seeing him play the same players over and over again, because those are probably just the players that he trusts the most, despite the fact that they're low on energy, as he even mentioned after the game. But I think that it's just something that, well, I wonder if he's ever going to back off. That he seems like a manager who's still young in his career and is going and wants to kind of impose this kind of style of soccer on other teams and on his own team too. So I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see if he adjusts to that, because clearly, I mean, you can't kind of plan for every pass to be perfect and for things to always go exactly how you're planning them on the chalkboard.
You can minimize it a little bit though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And some of these passes are just so hilariously errant that you kind of have to laugh sometimes. Like, my goodness, there are a few that just are not even god dang close. And then you bring someone new on, you bring on a substitute, and here comes the substitute to really change the game and change the outlook of things. And it just happens to be Alex DeJohn, and Alex DeJohn takes, God, that's as bad a free kick as I've ever seen.
That was,
and I watched Iago Aspas take a corner at Anfield in 2013. So,
touche. Yeah, I mean, that was one of those ones where it was like, what was the plan here? Like, what was the?
I can't even figure out what he was trying to do.
It's like. It was like it was like something you would see in like high school soccer, where somebody just like goes up and like thwacks the ball into play. Like,
can I tell you what it
it's literally like foosball, just like putting just like dropping the ball in the middle of in the park and let him go after it.
Did you ever play Wii golf?
Yeah.
Like on the Wii, like sometimes you would do it and the controller wouldn't respond to what you're doing at all. And so like the shot would just go like completely out of the way. Alex DeJohn's Wii controller did not respond accordingly to whatever he was trying to do there.
Yeah.
And that's the worst example. Actually, no, Santiago is the worst example where he gave.
That was a bad one.
That was the worst.
Was he trying to like, did he think he was going to get more power on that pass, Santiago Sosa? Because it was kind of backwards toward Guzan. Not dissimilar from Barco's poor pass that led to Guzan's red card in the first game. But it was like not even close. It probably didn't even get 25% of the way to Guzan. So I don't know what he was thinking.
He's done this a couple times where he has options in front of him, and I think gets so maybe flustered and maybe just kind of loses whatever process he's supposed to be going through, that he kind of makes two decisions at once.
Yeah.
And instead of going either way, he goes in the middle of it. And the middle of it is, of course, a forward, right?
Yeah.
So he just kind of chips it to a forward. It's like, oh God, now we're running.
Yeah.
Now we're running. Oh no.
And I don't want to be too harsh on Santiago Sosa, because like you said, I mean, it's like without him, you're not even able to generate the kind of style of play that you want in general. Like, he's so important to this team, and he does do the right thing 99% of the time. It's funny. I think he was somebody I had to like when I'm doing my player ratings. I kind of like at halftime I'll like write a bunch of notes and I'll kind of come up with like some preliminary numbers and then I'll kind of adjust as I get in the second half. I think I had to like tick him down twice. I think I had him as like a 7 around halftime. I don't even remember what he finished at. Maybe it was a 6, but yeah, tough one. But like, you know, I don't know. I don't know what to say about this game because, you know, on the one hand, I think of it's like if Josef Martinez scores that goal in the 86th minute and Atlanta United gets a 1-1 draw, we're probably all like, oh, yeah, hell yes. Josef Martinez scored. We got a point on the road when we played poorly. You know, that's fine. Like, that's a good result you can be proud of. But just, you know, it's game state, like the way it all kind of came about. When you have an early lead in those kinds of conditions, you think that's like to score an early goal like that is the best time. That puts you at the biggest advantage because Miami was having to do a lot of running in that game.
Absolutely.
And they really they worked hard to get that goal back and they really should have won the game. So I don't know. It's hard for me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how to kind of, you know, walk away from this game. But I think I'm just kind of hopeful that we see an improved team now that this congested part of the schedule is done and they can get back on the training pitch, get healthier, get fitter, and recover, obviously, and just have better legs under them. Because it really did seem like they were just kind of outworked in that second half.
Yeah, by Lewis Morgan especially. Lewis Morgan was getting a high usage rate, and of course then he gets the goal and everything like that. And shout out me because I said on the daily, don't worry about Higuain, don't worry about the other ones, worry about Lewis Morgan. He's going to hit us in transition, and then he kind of did. He kind of did pretty hard.
I mean, you could see Atlanta looked tired as hell in that second. Yeah. Like they looked like like players in like specific individually just looked like.
And then George Bello
watching Santiago Sosa was like painful to watch. Like it's like how tired he looked out there.
And George Bello looked tired from the jump. So
I mean, and he and he has every right to be. You know, like he's played almost every single minute at a high energy position. And yeah, it's just like, you know, the team has Mikey Ambrose technically, but you know, is he really on the team if he never plays a minute? Like, I don't know. You know, it's one of those things where, again, kind of going back to Heinze and players that he trusts. Like, you know, hopefully over the course of the season he can discover more of those guys, but who knows?
Well, that's what we thought about Alex John, and then he showed up out of nowhere to make an appearance here. So you never know. I guess you never know with Gabby. But we talked a bit about the style of the game, and again, Atlanta, a lot of possession. I think it was like almost nearly 70%. You would have thought that would have killed things off with Miami chasing so much, and the Florida Heat didn't quite happen as Atlanta gets more and more tired. Here's what I kind of want to take away from it is that I think they keep adding more and more like good moments. By more and more, I mean like one a game. Like they're like adding one more good moment a game. For example, they had a transition moment and it nearly resulted in a goal because Marcelino Moreno found Jake Mulroney on the penalty spot just about. And Jake, I think, kicked it off his face or something like that. It was not even close. I don't know what he did. I think he blocked really his own shot. It was not great.
Like a pure scuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe somewhat indicative of a thing we've been talking about with talent, but you know, we won't harp on that too much anymore.
Well,
not to make.
I mean, mad. You said something during the game. I can't remember if it was in the Discord or on Twitter or whatever, but I saw it and I agreed with it, which was that, you know, with this team, they will have some good moments. Like obviously in build up, they're solid. You can tell they're very well, you know, it's like very well practiced, that all those routines. And sometimes they'll make a good transition. They'll have a good moment in transition where they're actually able to break through some lines. And then they'll get into this attacking phase where it's like the wingers and Josef run down the field. And it's like, they don't know what to do. It's like, they forget how to how to attack, or it's like maybe it's like a pure lack of confidence where it just seems like, especially Lopez and Mulroney, it's like they're afraid to express themselves essentially and get forward and try to make something happen and attack. Like they're waiting for somebody else to get involved that they can give the ball to. And you would just love to see more directness, you know. And it's something that Brooks Lennon talked about when we talked to him this week, saying that, like, you know, some guys just need to have that kind of confidence to just go in and have a shot, you know.
And I laughed because Brooks he took 2 touches one time inside the box and just thumped one from a tight angle. I went, oh,
I
okay, he's
noticed
doing
that
it.
too. Yeah,
He's doing it.
I thought
Yeah,
the
great.
exact same thing.
But
I mean,
what you're
it's true. Like I was like, well, at least it's a shot, you know. At least it's like testing the
right.
goalkeeper.
Absolutely.
I didn't mind seeing it, and I think that's why, you know, I think a lot of people. I'm kind of gonna go off on a tangent here, but curious about why that Alex DeJohn substitute happened. I think that he came in to hopefully defend on set pieces late in that game while Atlanta was still holding a lead when he came in. Of course, he kind of helped give that lead away like 3 minutes after coming on. But one thing that it did when he came on at right back, Brooks Lennon went up and played right wing. And I thought that was actually probably a good move to make. Maybe not the Alex DeJohn part, but I did like having Brooks Lennon up on that right wing because he would just give you some sort of directness and kind of confidence going towards goal.
It was very funny when that happened because on the MLSsoccer.com website, the mothership, they have the lineups and then they have like the substitutions you make, and just they don't really like change it once you make the substitutions. They just switch the players out. So the front line was Franco Ibarra, Cubo Torres, and Alex DeJohn on the website. And I was like, man, yeah, this classic stacked Atlanta front three, just a swarm of hornets coming after you, you know?
Yeah.
But you talked about those transition moments, and drink every time I say transition. I apologize, but it's just such a big trend right now in MLS. You see a lot of teams having success early in the season, hitting in these moments. It's just kind of the general nature of what's happening around the league, to the extent that a lot of teams are even playing like a flat 4-4-2 almost, or even a diamond or anything like that, just so they can get people making those second level runs, everything like that. So when you look at Atlanta United trying to do something similar, they will get the ball in a good spot. They'll have a numbers advantage kind of right from the jump. And then they'll kind of like lightly jog and no one will make a run in behind, right? And then they'll work the ball up, probably not as fast as they should. And then someone will get it on the wing. And then whoever gets it on the wing, will dribble sideways, will go laterally for like a good 5-6 touches, and then let the defense reset, and then they'll misplay a pass, and then they repeat that, right?
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. I'm really desperate for them to figure out that they can try things. Holy crap. It feels like, you know what we need to do this thing? It's like when the Mighty Ducks go and play the street hockey team.
Yeah.
And realize that like, oh, there's like these cool things we can do, like a knuckle puck, and oh, this game is fun and everything like that. We need to like take Atlanta United out to a vacant lot.
That's right.
Somewhere where like just a bunch of kids are playing with like a mini ball and like bare feet, and
like
have them remember how to have fun.
Like the game that Santiago Munez is playing in at the beginning of the Goal movie, where it's just like the pickup game in the dusty on the dusty field. Yeah, where they use like cardboard down in their socks as their shin guards. Yeah, that's exactly. That's where you learn how to play for sure.
Exactly. You know, and I feel like those guys can do it. They just, I don't know if it's a confidence thing, or if they're maybe they're just scared of Gabby. Have we considered that?
Well, yeah. I mean, like honestly, I think that, you know, this team, well, we've talked to Bobby Boswell, we've talked to Michael Parkhurst about this, Jeff Lorenowitz. They've all kind of talked about, granted, they're not playing for Gabriel Heinze, but I have to assume that it's kind of similar, where training is all about working on the build up, working on these patterns, working on these phases of play. And I feel almost like I just wonder if that's how the players in the attack still have that kind of mentality when the ball moves into that position, where it's like they're still thinking way too mechanically about how things should happen, instead of just making something happen when you have an opportunity to like go one-on-one against somebody, when you've already had all this good play from the back to get you to that point. Like that's the time where you just got to kind of make something happen. And I feel like, you know, again, when you talk about the quality, I feel like a guy like Eric Lopez, like he's got technical ability. Like we've seen him, you know, he's got a decent first touch, he can dribble. But you know, he'll just do things sometimes where it's like he'll drift inside and somebody will just come and pick the ball off him from the back. And he doesn't see it coming. And it's like, oh, come on, like just move the ball, like just do something with it. That's like what it's like. So frustrating.
That happened twice yesterday, where someone just like, I said that it looked like Atlanta United's players looked like they had lost object permanence, because they would turn around and it'd be like, okay, now no one exists behind me and I can dribble freely.
Yeah.
Right. So
if I can't see them, they don't exist. Yeah.
So maybe not the best thing to do is a weird lack of awareness at certain points. That could probably go back to exhaustion because I remember it happened with George one time.
Yeah.
And again, George just looked shot. But it kind of brings me to something here, and I do want to talk about maybe some positive aspects here, right? And maybe what we can take away from this team is an understanding that this team, as constructed for this year, is a team that is probably going to do good to pretty good with teams in the lower rungs of
Mm-hmm.
MLS and not be able to compete with teams at the higher tier. And essentially what that does is that puts you in a mid-level playoff spot, right? Which is exactly what we said at the beginning of the year, isn't it?
Yep.
The way they're playing right now, the pace they're kind of at, and theoretically it should improve right now. But I think everyone may just kind of have to be comfortable with, okay, this is a team that is going to be like fifth, sixth, or seventh, and that's just kind of what it is. As this team kind of moves towards hopefully getting the roster right next year. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, my really boring answer is, or my like boring response to that is that like we still don't know what this team is yet because it's still so early. They haven't had a
Sure.
lot of time to train on the training pitch. They had obviously a long preseason period to train and kind of work on these tactics. And then as soon as preseason ended, you're into game after game after game essentially, where you're just kind of playing a game, recovering, a lot like what we saw with this team last year when they came back from MLS's back under Stephen Glass, and like they weren't really able to ever improve on their, on where they were both tactically or in the standings because they were just kind of in this cycle. And so I feel like that's one thing I want to see from this team over the next month or so is to see if things change for the better, if some of this rest and recovery and implementation of more tactical concepts do take root over this time. And I think that I think that this will be an important month in kind of informing us on what this team is going to be. My feelings toward this team are still very optimistic over the long term. Like
Yeah.
and again, when I talk the long term, I'm talking about like a 2-year period through Gabriel Heinze's contract or the first phase of his contract. And so I'm still very optimistic in that respect. I mean, I know people are upset because the team has what, 4 points or 5 points,
5 points,
5 points through 4 games or whatever it is. Which is, not
which
great.
isn't bad. That's
Yeah.
Columbus right now.
It's
That's
middle
a few
of the
other teams
pack.
right now.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's
that's
middle
what
of
it
the
is.
East. Yeah. So I mean, and I don't think that this is going to continue. I think that things are only going to potentially improve for this team as they can adjust the roster in the transfer window, and then obviously as they get more time to play together.
I don't know. I'd take 5 points from for the way they
I
kind of
would
have
too.
right now, honestly.
I would too.
All
would
considered
too.
in the grander scheme of things. But obviously, what we want from the team is for them to be at the level that we've always indicated that this team is supposed to be at, considering the resources, everything like that.
Sure.
So I think some people get caught up sometimes, like, oh, they're being like so negative and everything like that. This is a good MLS team. Well, like we want it to be a great MLS team,
Yeah.
because so much of our sporting lives have been pain, and this is supposed to be the one that's not the pain, right? Just to clarify.
Yeah.
Just to clarify there. Joe, any players stood out for you yesterday, anything like that? Obviously Josef gets the goal, and it's super encouraging to see him score, especially from the limited chances he honestly got. I think he had one other shot and it came off a deflection, maybe. And then there was the volley attempt as well. Those were not high percentage chances. None of those were high percentage chances yesterday. He still found a way to score, which is obviously going to open things up a little bit. I do worry about how often they're even going to find him in those chances, because thinking about the goal, it looked very similar to the move Lopez made with him in Philadelphia, where for the first time it looked like they were willing to play 1-2s to run to the box and everything like that, and link up, right? Looked very, very similar to that. This time Josef, instead of passing it back though, said, screw it, I'll do it myself. Ryan Shawcross is guarding me and shot, right? So that's encouraging for sure, right? And even Josef, I do want to say too that Josef said he's not at 100%. He's just not there yet.
Yeah.
And you can tell a little bit that he's still hesitant to do things, but that's encouraging. Anyone else kind of stand out to you as something maybe positive here?
Yeah, I'll shout out 2 guys, and 2 guys that honestly, well, one of them especially that we give a hard time a lot.
Oh, so before we do this, is
Yeah.
this our Larinowitz man of the match we're about to talk
Oh,
about? Let's bring it back.
we should bring it back. Well, okay, if we're going Lorenowitz man of the match, I think we had actually called him the man of the night.
Did we really?
Yeah.
That's
Which I always thought
weird.
was kind of sexy and
Okay, yeah, man of the night. Yeah, let's
the
do it.
Loretowitz man of the night. Um, Brooks Lennon for me has been like really probably Atlanta's most consistent player throughout this season. And I just thought he was really good again yesterday. The energy is always impressive to me to just see how hard he works throughout a game. And we talked about it earlier, but it was so refreshing to just see him play direct at times when it seemed like Atlanta just needed something to start going offensively. So I want to give him a shout out, but I also want to give a shout out to a guy that we give a stick a lot, which is Emerson Hyman. I thought Hyman was awesome in this game. I think that he's honestly turning into a player who really gives you a lot going forward in those. So the way that a lot of these games work now with teams that want to press, it's kind of like the modern style is like you have a lot of build up play at the back that's just kind of between Sosa and the center backs and the fullbacks, and it kind of gets recycled a lot in that between those defenders. But then Heineman is kind of one of those key players where it can flip, where it's like where Heineman can receive the ball and like on a half turn and spin or something and make an attack happen. Like it's almost like a trigger point for that to start. And I thought that he was really good at that at times. And again, he works hard defensively too. He doesn't have the greatest defensive instincts, but he's starting to do a much more consistent job on that end. And I just see him becoming more of a dynamic offensive player from that kind of deeper number 8 role.
Joe, are you saying we found the Nagby replacement?
Well, Santiago Sosa he's the Nagby replacement, the true Nagby replacement.
Yeah. No, Emerson's work rate has been better. Emerson defensively has been better. I would love to. I'm working on getting that fancy second spectrum data that Matt Doyle and company are using up at the mothership. They're working on getting it to me as well. But Emerson Hyman's pressing numbers have been really, really solid so far. And I would love to continue to look at that and see how that continues to go. Because right now, frankly, something that Atlanta is missing, and this may come down to fatigue and fixture congestion and the lack of time on the training pitch to understand the patterns and the triggers and everything like that. But this team is not pressed. This team has not been a team
they really haven't.
Has killed teams with pressing. It has resulted in a team that does not get the ball in a lot of quality scenarios to counter, to counter press and create things from where they pick up the ball. And even when they do, it's not like they do anything with it right now because, again, the whole running sideways thing. But, it's something that I think will hopefully eventually take over. It was somewhat a characteristic of the Velez teams, but maybe not a massive characteristic, but something that helps them, and something that will help us when it happens.
The only time I can really remember the press being noticeable was the really good period that the team had against Philadelphia Union for like that 55 minutes or whatever. Like that was a time where it was like they're all over them. And that's what you want to see over the course of 90 minutes, though,
And that's where those pressing stats were coming from that were so indicative of Emerson being a crucial part of it. He had a ton of them. Lissandro had a bunch, which was kind of surprising. A few other folks were pressing right through the middle and really attacking the middle of that 4-4-2 diamond that Philadelphia is running. And that's what ended up creating the best half Atlanta's played in a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So again, looking forward to this next month or so. I think that's definitely something to look for with this team kind of getting more rejuvenated with some more rest and recovery time. Is do they up that pressing intensity during those games? Because I think that if they do, it will really help them in terms of what they want to do with the ball.
Exactly. Joe, thoughts real quick. We talked about this team being tired. Thoughts on the substitutions or lack thereof yet again?
I mean, again, I kind of talked about the Alex DeJohn thing where I understand the reasoning behind why you make that move. Obviously it didn't work out. Franco Ibarra, I think he's just going to be a player who comes in as a sub pretty much in every game. If he's not starting, he's just one of those kinds of players where he's got enough technical ability and he's kind of tenacious enough defensively where you'll have room for him to come in as a sub. And I have no problem with that. I didn't really notice him after he came on. I didn't really notice a lot of his actions. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you really how well he did or did not play. And then Cubo Torres is just the most like wet blanket kind of
Is
sub.
Jackson dead?
I don't know. It's so depressing, man. And honestly, this was one of Kubo's. I thought it was one of Kubo's better sub performances, and I think that says something. I mean, at least there was like a couple times where he held the ball up and was able to like pass it to somebody else, just like the most basic thing you can do in the game. But at least he was able to do it a few times. You would just, yeah, I mean, I would just love to see Jackson Conway just to see what he can do. I would love to see Jackson Conway for the same reasons that I wanted to see Eric Lopez when he wasn't playing. Like, seriously, that's what it's like. So you've seen a glimpse of talent and you want to see more of it. You want to see what they might be able to provide.
Well, folks, you heard Joe Patrick right there. Go ahead and start the Save Jackson Conway campaign and attribute it all to Joe Patrick.
There we go.
And continue to beat that bit into the ground as much as possible. It's great. It's great. What's also great is you guys have plenty of questions. We'll get to those after this quick break. What a break. What a break, Joe Patrick. What a time to be alive. What a time to answer listener questions. And we didn't have a ton here because I think everyone, again, we're
like
we're
me,
veering,
was like checking out.
Yeah. We're veering into that realm of
it was Mother's Day. Purgatory. It was Mother's Day. People had things to do. It was a Braves game.
That's right. Yeah. There were things. But again, we're veering into analytical purgatory here where everything just kind of starts to sound the same. But we do have a couple questions to get to. And this one like from Jacob.
Term, analytical purgatory.
This is a long one from Jacob, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah, read the whole thing if you don't mind.
We're gonna read the whole thing. Let's do this. This is Jacob from the Discord, by the way. You can join that Discord if you go to the Patreon. Jacob asks, the TV announcers kept referencing a conversation with Boca they had this week in which Boca said he doesn't want ATL's resurgence to be dependent on Josef. I was encouraged to hear that, but also confused when I watched Jake Mulroney flub a shot from point-blank range and then Alex DeJong and Cubo Torres subbed on. It doesn't feel like Boca has backed that statement with suitable goal-scoring threats on the team outside of Josef. It always feels like we're signing players for what we think they could be rather than what the data, i.e. someone like PT or Moreno, says they are. Example, it seems like we thought Moreno could be a producer of goals when he never really was that at Lanús. Same with Barco or vice versa with Tito. Boca's been able to hide from specific criticisms toward him, I feel like, since our inception. But if he's really mostly in charge of player acquisition, at what point should we really be concerned? It's not been great for 3 seasons now. Wow. Jacob.
Wow. He just went there.
He did. He did. And it's something that we haven't really breached a lot on this show. And I think we can maybe explain ourselves a little bit for that in the sense that we don't know exactly how the chain of command works. Yeah. Right? If we did, we would let y'all know. We would let y'all know how and who to direct any anger at, right? But our understanding for the most part is that it is, of course, a collective process. That's Darren, that's Paul McDonough, that's formerly Lucy Rushton, right? And the analytics side, that's all of them working together, right? However, I do think Jacob makes a point that Boca's role has been described as the recruiter, right? Like we've jokingly called him the recruiting coordinator for this, right? And if that is in fact his main function within this organization, I think there are valid criticisms to be made.
Yeah, I mean, as the technical director, it's just kind of assumed that whether or not you were directly responsible for certain signings, you're the technical director, so you kind of have to take responsibility for the signings that do come in. And yeah, obviously there are going to be hits and misses. And I do think that it is an interesting point where Jacob was talking about. It feels like we're signing players for what they could be, what we think they could be, as opposed to maybe what they actually have shown what they are in the past. I feel like it's still very early to judge some of these players. They haven't even been here for a full year for almost all of them. Even a guy like Marcelino Moreno feels like he's probably been here longer than many of them, and he came late last season, so we still don't really know exactly who he is. But I mean, I do think there are kind of, it's just it's still an open question, I feel like, with a lot of these players.
Sure.
And when you look at a guy like Eric Lopez, for example, or Marcelino Moreno, both let's just look at both those players because of the time they were signed. And we can put Jurgen Damm in this bucket as well. These players who were signed last year, I'm a little like, there's a little bit of suspicion in my head that's like, was this team like doing so poorly last year that maybe these were like panicky moves that the team felt like they had to bring in. I don't know. I don't know. But you guys
If
say
that's
something?
the case, then that's extremely problematic because they were so clearly punting on last year,
Yeah.
right? Like you can't half-ass that, because it ends up turning into now, right? Where you kind of have a mixture of guys who maybe are good enough and maybe aren't. That's my
And
thought.
and the punting part of it is kind of what makes me think like I wonder if, when they get the miracle bid for Pitti to buy him for $20 million and you have to sell for that amount, do you feel a pressure as an organization to sign a designated player, to sign Marcelino Moreno so that it looks like you're ambitious and it looks like you're building for something? Um, and I'm not saying that Marcelino Moreno is a good or bad sign. I don't know. Again, I think it's an open book at this point with all these players. I think it's too
Mhm.
early to judge specifically, but I do think that just in general, to address Jacob's question, that are there criticisms of Carlos Bocanegra in the front office? We've voiced our criticisms in the past many times about, especially like in the middle of last year. So I do think that there are fair criticisms to make of the club, of course. And I just think, but I think it's an open book as to some of these specific players right now, as to whether they're mistakes or whatever.
In regards to player acquisition, of course, we had Jeff on the show just a little bit ago, and he was talking about how after the MLS Cup year, everyone, you know, says, "Hey, I'm doing these things just because this guy. Why am I not making this amount of money?" And obviously, MLS cap rules restrict the guys you can keep. But what's fascinating mostly about that to me is that those were all guys they hit on. Like they hit on nearly everybody in the beginning.
Yeah.
And the only thing that really changed is Paul McDonough left for Inter Miami, but now Paul McDonough's back. It still seems like we're maybe having still some of the same kind of like maybe hesitancy to declare any of these guys pretty spectacular, except for Santiago, who again though we'll have to give full credit for that. That seems like a definite hit right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And so maybe that will become more apparent as time goes on and they continue to add players into this rebuild. But I don't know. Maybe sometimes you just have a collective, a collective year where you don't hit, right? Like think about it in like terms of baseball. Like if you hit like 300, you're going to have 7 times where you don't get
Mm-hmm.
on base out of 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if all of those 7 happen at one time and you go 0 for 7 over that stretch, like people are like, oh, he's doing terribly, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you space those out, it seems a little better, right?
Yeah.
So maybe perhaps there's some fallacy on our part for looking at those and going, okay, they didn't hit for this stretch of time. That makes them bad. That may not be the actual case, if that makes sense. I think
Yeah.
that made sense.
And I think it does. And I think that, you have to judge the designated players more harshly or judge them in terms of like whether were a good or bad signing, because of how important they are, because of the fact that you only get 3 of them. So there's a big opportunity cost if you do miss on one.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the nature of it with the way that MLS is structured. I'm less like, I will take misses if they're on the low end. Like who was the Venezuelan left back? We have a minute question later on. Jose Hernandez. Like you sign a Jose Hernandez, he doesn't turn out. That's totally fine. Like that's a lotto ticket type thing. You don't expect to hit, honestly. But for like a player like Ezequiel Barco, you need someone like that to be productive. And I honestly think that Barco has been generally productive and helpful for this team when he's been available. The problem with him is that he just hasn't been able to stay healthy basically through his entire Atlanta United career. So, it's just that's just the way it breaks sometimes. But I think there will still be, there will be plenty of time for us to continue to assess the situation. I think that it will be a very interesting offseason to see how this team does continue to shape the roster and how that Paul McDonough is in the fold. I don't think that we've really had the time yet for him to really make a big impact on the signings that have been made to this point. But I think that, we'll start to see more and more of his impact as we progress throughout these future transfer windows.
Yeah. No, we totally understand the frustration. We understand that this team obviously is able and willing to spend a lot of money, and it's frustrating to see other teams have more talent by doing less, right? Like I saw a couple of folks bring up Bezpachenko in Columbus, who's their GM right now, and it was Toronto's GM for the number of years that they were incredible, and how he is doing so much more with less,
Yeah.
right? And I get why that's frustrating to see. But it's not definitive for this team. It's not definitive for this year because again, there's still opportunities to make moves. There's still opportunities to pull folks in. I don't think this team is set yet, and I think if they believe it's set, then maybe then we could start having some serious conversations about the direction of the team in the front office. But there's still a little bit of time here for them to reconstruct this team in more of Gabby's image and reconstruct this team in more of an image that will be successful in MLS to the point where we want this team to be successful, right?
Yep,
Fair?
I agree.
All good?
Yep.
Jacob, good question, man. Next question comes from Bad Time Bob, who says, what's the supply-demand curve of things that are actually troubling with Sunday's performance versus saying they travel to a high noon game in a sweltering Miami after crashing out of CCL and playing 6 games in 3 weeks at the beginning of the season? I think we finally had a CCL team win the weekend after they played. It was Philadelphia against Chicago. I'm trying to think. Let's see. Portland lost. Columbus did win. Columbus beat DC. So we finally got to the point at the very end of MLS's CCL run where teams won on the weekend where they played. It hadn't happened.
It's been a struggle for all of them.
It's been a struggle for all of them. Those are very good teams. Those are Columbus's and well, Toronto lost again, but they hired Chris Armas. So whose fault is that? God, Red Bulls beat Toronto. That really low key warms my heart. Yeah. As much as I hate New York, but it's really funny. It's really funny. Anyway, so yeah, no, I think obviously, Bob, we agree for the most part. I think Hot hasn't had enough time to really get settled yet and everything like that. Be a little more worried down the road. I think there is a point. You talked about the supply demand curve. I think there is a point where you can look at this team and go, okay, they're not as gifted as some of the other teams. I think that is fair. I think you understand that if you have been watching literally anyone else but Atlanta United. Shoot, man, go and watch highlights from Sporting in Austin last night. They were making things happen that Atlanta United simply can't make happen right now. And that is very clear, and that is something that is not going to change as new players come in. However, as far as tactics, as far as effort, as far as pressing and everything like that, that is something that you can say, okay, short rest, hot, not really going to worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think there are legitimate, troubling things or concerning things about what you see from the team on the field for sure. Like, I mean, this team is still in its infancy, in my opinion, and that's why I'm just generally not that worried about it. As maybe contradictory as that might sound, I'm not worried because it is so early in that I wouldn't expect this team to just, in their 5th game to be like firing on all cylinders and be this really like, attacking potent team. And I do think that, the conditions obviously have a lot to do with that as well. So we're at some point on that curve. It's too early for me to really be thinking too much about, too early in the morning for me to be thinking about slow supply and demand curves too specifically. But obviously there are some things to be concerned about. And there's also the context of the game that just makes it difficult for a team like Atlanta.
I do want to say that this is sounding a lot like the conversations we had at the Frank de Boer beginning, right? Ooh, but here is what I'm going to say that's different about that is that while Joe was saying these things last time, I was thinking, nope, team bad. I am not thinking this. I'm not thinking that right now, right? Like I think this team is still constructed.
Why do you feel differently?
But the biggest thing I think is the tactics, right? I feel differently about their the setup, the willingness to get forward, the willingness to create something interesting. Now they just kind of have to find the guys who can execute it, and then those guys have to find the confidence to do it. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just kind of back you up, I want to just give a shout out to Will Laverne. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce your last name, Will. I apologize. But he wrote a great article for us on Dirty South Soccer. You guys probably have already read it, I imagine, if you're plugged into Atlanta United and you're interested in this kind of stuff. But if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But that really opened my eyes. Honestly, it made some things more clear when I just watched the game this weekend, to be able to kind of recognize some of the patterns that Will talked about in that piece. And again, that's what does make me more excited. I will even admit, like, this looks better than it did in under DeBoer in the early days, because the build up play, even under DeBoer, even though both teams are kind of a slow build up phase, there's just a lot more activity and a lot more going on in this Heinze system as opposed to what was happening with DeBoer. And I feel like you can see that it can blossom into a more potent offensive attack in this system.
It can. It can. It just needs a little bit more. God, sometimes dudes are just sitting around, you know. You would love to see a few more off-ball runs, and you would love to see a little more dynamism.
It
With
needs
it.
a little bit. It needs a little bit more Tito.
It does need a little bit more Tito. It needs a little bit more John Gallagher, who scored last night, and I lost my mind. Oh my God, it was a good play too. He made a good touch. He kind of went around some folks and then finished very, very calmly. I will never, ever understand. You can go back. I have receipts. Go back and listen to the show we did right after he traded. I went, seems bad. Seems like a bad idea. It still seems like a bad idea.
Atlanta's scouting of the college players in those early drafts is incredible. Not only
Really, honestly,
you look at the first round picks of Julian Gressel, Miles Robinson was actually taken before Gressel, and then John Gallagher the next year. That's 3 quality players there.
That's impressive. It's impressive. I do want to point out something real quick. Doug posted this on Twitter, but it's from Matt Doyle's Sunday column on the Mothership, which uses a lot of that second spectrum data, and it's talking about Atlanta United off the ball. It says they're over the last 2 years. That's 26 teams last year, 27 teams this year. So what is that? 53 teams. Atlanta United are 32nd in off-ball attacking runs per 90 minutes and 45th in the average maximum speed of those runs. So they're maybe not moving off the ball as much as they should be. They're definitely not doing it at a pace that's going to cause pretty much any backline in this league issues. It's something to kind of keep in mind that the structure is there, right? But maybe a few more runs and maybe a couple folks that can actually break those lines would be very, very helpful to this. Would also be very, very helpful, Joe Patrick, if you were readily prepared to answer these questions, because this is rapid fire. Kurt Castle asks, how angry does Josef have to get to make Jake scared enough to shoot straight?
Maybe not as angry, but close to the anger level of Michael Jordan when he like punched somebody in training.
Steve Kerr.
With Kerr, yeah. In the chat, was it? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering when that's going to happen. I think Josef is hesitant to really freak out on anybody right now. He talked a lot about like appreciating life and appreciating his friends or some shit after the game.
Josef, what are you talking about? You need to get pissed.
Right, exactly. Right. So once he finally gets back to his normal self, I think we'll see him get a little more frustrated. Can't use that ask, has anyone seen Ronald Hernandez and Jose Hernandez in the same room together? It's starting to feel like more we did Aberdeen a favor taking him on than the other way around. Yeah, that's kind of ruined some of the conspiracy theories that we had about that move. But he's been completely AWOL so far. I don't know what's up.
And I forget, is he an international? I don't remember at this point in time.
It may not matter.
It would be weird if he was, but anyway.
Yeah. Sam asked, what's the best scene in Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, Joe?
I haven't seen Sister Act 2. Only
what
Sister Act 1.
What? Oh, what's the best scene in Sister Act 1 then?
I'm kidding. I haven't seen either one.
What?
I'm really getting called out here.
Yeah, you need to do better here.
My only memories of Sister Act is seeing the VHSs adorn the walls. Like at Blockbuster when there was like the little individual cartridges for all the different, or the little displays for every single individual VHS tape.
Because it's a great family movie to watch on a Friday night and learn about how much you care about yourself and each other. Joe Patrick, do better. Tony asked, what is the best scene? The best scene in Sister Act 2 is when Amal hits the high note during Go Happy Day. The best scene in Sister Act 1 is when the nuns come together to perform inside the church for the first time and do a wonderful version of O Maria. It's phenomenal.
I love that. Love that song.
Absolutely. Tony asked, how many goals will our dude Josef have to score to make it to the playoffs? It's a good question, because Josh Bagrionski was talking a little bit about how Josef scoring is going to open up everything for this team. I don't necessarily agree that much. I think it will help a little bit, but I still think you need the dudes. So I don't know. For us to make the playoffs, he had to score, 28 in 2019 to get Atlanta as far as they did. I don't think he has that in him this year. So I don't know.
I think I said 19. I'm sticking with 19.
19. I think that's doable. I think that can happen. Smurfy asked, who was the John trying to pass to?
He was trying to pass it to Whoopi Goldberg was the first name I came up with because of Sister Act. I don't know.
Then that's the correct answer, and it's canon. It's canon. One day you'll impress Whoopi, Alex. One day, and that was rapid fire.
That was a disaster.
Always, and that's why we love it. That's why we love it. Joe, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, just take it easy. Have a nice week, everybody. We'll see you with Anton Walks hopefully this week. If we still can't get him, then we'll get Felipe or somebody to come on.
Don't say it like that. We'll get Felipe. I
know.
Jeez, man.
No, we'll have something for you guys. But yeah, just have a great week.
100% capacity.
Yes,
this weekend,
yeah,
folks. Get excited. Get excited. I probably walk around the Gulch at some point.
It's been super fun at Braves with 100% capacity. How was it? You went there as a fan, right? How was that?
I did. It was fine. It was not 100% full. Even if 100% of people bought tickets, it was more like 80, 90%. But, I feel comfortable at this point, especially outside with being vaccinated and everything like that, that I can go out there and comfortably not worry about myself or hurting someone
or
else
giving it to somebody.
Point.
Yeah, for sure.
So once that responsibility's been taken off me, I feel comfortable doing it. If you do not, that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. You don't have to show up to these things, and that's totally fine.
Yep.
I respect that decision. And if you want to, I respect that decision too. It seems kind of fun. So I'll probably be there walking around the Gulch before the game, say, hey, if you see me, maybe don't give me too much alcohol, but maybe like a little alcohol. It'll be good. I'm looking forward to it. Anything else?
No, I might join you in on that alcohol though. We'll just enough so that they can't smell it on our.
Yeah,
it's not like coming out of your pores when you get inside.
Yeah, we'll admit to maybe taking a couple drinks.
It's very quiet in the press box.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you yelling, Sam?
Why are you talking about Sister Act 2 in the press box, Sam? That'll do it. Let's get out of here. Have a good week. Bye, y'all.